easiest icebreaker on the planet is the weather. I mean, I have to apologize for this pun, but that is how it is. And in Bangalore, especially if you're new to the city, the easiest way to make friends is to talk about the weather. We really love this weather and we can talk peens about it. But then again, we've seen this change. Now, I remember a summer where I had to wear a sweater and it's not the same anymore, which means it raises a few pressing issues, such as how should we think and plan ahead to set an example in climate resilience? And our next panel is going to deliberate just that. So please join me in welcoming on stage our first panelist, who is the Commissioner of BBMP. He holds a BTech degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA in human resource management. Now, he's a part of the 1993 batch of IAS officer, and he's from Uttar Pradesh, and he's been here in Karnataka for over 25 years, holding a portfolio of several state government positions. He was also the chairperson of the BWSSB for 4 years. Please join me in welcoming on stage Tushar Giri Nath. All right, while we wait for Tushar Giri Nath to join us, our next panelist on stage is the director of the Indian Institute of Human Settlements, which is an interdisciplinary national university focused on urbanization. Now, he's a global thought leader and an educator with over 35 years of experience in public policy, human settlements, global environment, and technological change. As the co-chair of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, he has helped lead a successful campaign for an urban sustainable development goal as a part of the United Nations 2030 Development Agenda. Please put your hands together and welcome on stage Aromar Revi. Thank you. Our next panelist is a professor of ecology at the Azim Premji University, and she leads the university's Center for Climate Change and Sustainability. Now, she's known for her research on forest conservation and urban sustainability with several seminal publications in both areas of work. Now, she has been recognized for elucidating the link between pattern and process in the human-dominated landscape of South Asia. Please welcome on stage Harini Nagendra. Ladies and gentlemen, Tushar Giri Nath for all of us. Our next panelist obtained his PhD from the Indian Institute of Science here in Bengaluru. Now, his research has been primarily on land use and land cover change studies, exploring their consequences on environmental sustainability and understanding their interrelationship with natural resources. Now, with a strong desire to carry out independent, grounded research, he has established Gubbi Labs, a private research collective that works on various domains ranging from sustainable ecosystems to livable settlements. Please welcome on stage Dr. H.S. Sudhira. Thank you. And to lead this discussion, I would like to invite on stage the news editor here at Deccan Herald, Anita Pailor. Anita?
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It's a great pleasure and privilege to interact with the esteemed panel of climate change experts and practitioners here at the third summit of DH Bengaluru 2040. Just to set the context, here are some facts. The greenhouse gas emissions in this garden city, that is Bengaluru, is around 18.7 million metric tons every year. Just for comparison, in 2008, it was 6.36 million tons. And Bengaluru experiences around 15 extreme rain events every year in recent times. The urban heat island effect is a term I think we hear too often these days. And the air we breathe is 6 times worse than safe levels. And we are all facing the consequences. On this note, Professor Harini, I would just want to ask you, has climate change still remained a jargon, or is there a sense of urgency that has set in? So how do you think we can change the way we look at this problem and our approach towards it?
Thanks, Anita. Thank you for this very interesting invitation. Pleasure to be here. we are much more aware of climate change than we were in the past. I think something like, for instance, a year and a half ago, the floods that swept Bangalore made us very aware of extreme events and that we are not planning sufficiently for them. We know that Bangalore faces floods, droughts, heat waves, and the interaction between climate change, pollution, biodiversity is going to make this even worse. So I would say awareness is increasing, but awareness, is it increasing enough? I think pretty much what all the climate scientists are saying, and this is difference from, let's say, previous IPCC meetings to now, is that we have now a window of change, and our window is closing very quickly. If we don't do something in the next 5 years, we're going to see multiple tipping points. Already we see that certain Atlantic Ocean cycles might change, the Amazon, which is a forest, might become a desert. Once these tip, the cascade effects are going to be so huge, and I don't think any Indian city is well prepared for it. Certainly Bangalore is in a good place to be in because of our lakes, our trees, the fact that we are on a plateau, so it's already a cooler city, it's a very livable city. But I think we're very complacent. I think we need to be doing much, much more and much more urgently than we are right now.
Thank you, Harini. I think this leads us to the question. In fact, Bengaluru has taken a very proactive step towards climate action. Recently, we released the Bengaluru Climate Action and Resilience Plan. In fact, only the third city in India to have such a plan. So, Mr. Tushar Girinath, this question is for you. So, since we have this plan, which aims to reduce the pollution levels, that is greenhouse gas emissions, by 26% by 2040, how do you balance this? How do you balance climate goals and the rapid urban growth that we see both within the city and also in the periphery?
If you see the climate action plan and go into the details, it will show a lot of action to be taken at the national level, state level, and of course at our level to reach those objectives. Which is the most contributing factor to the warming of Bangalore or to the country as such. If you look into all that, BBMP or a municipal corporation has less of control on those factors. Now, given that we are in this situation, we are committing ourselves to the national goals. Since we are one of the advanced states, we will have to do much more than other states to compensate. Of course, it can be other way around. Discuss that since we are the growth of engine of growth for this whole country, we should be compensated by those northern states which are not at that level of development. So the growth engine and the development of the south can be compensated by the north. But given the policies, given the attitude of the people, the advanced places have got more sensitivity towards the issue. So we get more sensitive, we do more action also, and that is how the commitment of the national government to the Paris Convention, we would be doing more than that so that the nation achieves its goals. Now, how much would it be on the compromise on the development and the growth? Since when it becomes a matter of existence and you are not allowed to work because of flash floods coming, because of repeated impact of climate change, you have to be confined to your house, the heat effect, our groundwater is going down. You would be facing a lot of, even in your houses where you are getting the tanker supply will get reduced. So you will not be in a position to contribute the way you were doing because of all these things which will be local. The contributing factors may be global, we may be also contributing, I'm not denying it. The policies may be national level or international level, but the impact will be felt immediately by each one of us. So that saying that climate change, how much it is a compensation on the development, it is not an argument because otherwise you will not be able to work at all, is the question. We have to make our cities resilient. You have seen it last time, rainfalls were 40% rainfall was more than the normal. We anyway get good rainfall. Over and over that, 40-50% more had just led to havoc everywhere, and it continuously was there since the time I joined, because I joined on May 6th, and from May 15th, 18th, it rained and rained up to January 1st week, which was unprecedented. This time it has become totally reverse. We were all prepared to do this, now we are tackling the drought. and our all elected representative around now, they are not blaming the BWSSB, which is supposed to bring the water and supply, but they are blaming us that water is in short supply, and we are not doing much for drilling the bore, which is not the answer. So what I am saying is, climate change is real. It is impacting us. It will impact immediately, and it will not differentiate between the level of developments of various states, countries, and cities. And we should be prepared for that, because the impact of climate and the downtime of the city will have enormous impact on the state and national economy. So we should do much more than what the other states or the cities are doing. So that is an ulta perspective to what you are saying.
Thank you. So, yeah, you said it right. So, it is not in one agency's hands. So, next question is to you, Sudhira. So, how important is synergy between various government agencies to ensure urban sustainability? So, how do you see this play out in Bangalore?
Yeah, I guess you bring in a very interesting aspect to the larger governance aspects here. And something that I've been also looking at is that Mr. Tushar Girinath is here, I think, has heading the BBMP. He's like, I'm sure he will agree that he's mostly firefighting. In the sense, there are a lot of challenges that are there, but we have many institutions that have been created as special purpose vehicles. And what Bangalore has adopted is we have embraced something what is called as a new public management, where we have created SPVs for almost everything. And from a larger climate change perspective, what we really lack is that having cohesion in all of that. And if BWCSB is doing something, we have BESCOM doing something and all of it. So we have a multi-institutional challenge, and that's driving a different set of problems altogether. Now, coming to the sort of issue here, I think the challenge is how do we bring synergy there? And one of the challenges, I think, although we have the climate action plan that has been prepared for Bangalore, it may not be unfortunately enforceable because it's not a law.
Yeah.
As in, like the BDS master plan, right? As in, it is under the section 13D of the KTCP Act. Now, I'm not sure, as in, although it is a wishful thinking that we have the Bangalore Climate Action and Resilience Plan, we have seen many plans over the last 2 decades. Like from KODFC has IDIP, Investment Development Infrastructure Plan. We have the 2020 Comprehensive Transport and Traffic Plan. We have multiple plans in the city. The only plans that are really enforceable are the revised master plan that the BDA makes, because it is done as per the section 13D of KTCP Act, and the BMRDA structure plan. Barring that, we don't have anything. So that poses a different challenges for us to really think through this.
Okay, thank you. So when it comes to projects, so we have various projects like the Smart Cities program, which aims to place Bengaluru at a global level in terms of infrastructure. How do you think, Dr. Revi, that nature or ecology is embedded in this, our vision for smart cities? And what do you think, how do you think Bengaluru can learn from other cities' experiences?
Well, actually, the Smart Cities program is an interesting initiative. We spent, I guess, over 1 lakh crores over the last 10 years on it. But it doesn't deal with, it deals with some interesting questions, but it doesn't deal with the core challenges that sort of Bangalore is about. Because smartness is not only about a city. The really smart thing is about smart governance and, of course, smart people. And they have to work together in some senses. So what are the good things that Bangalore has going for it? One, of course, as we just heard just now, is the weather, fine? Even better than the weather is the people. And the fact that unlike other cities, you don't have cyclones, you don't have landslides, you don't have a whole range of other things as far as that's concerned. But there are a couple of things which are a little exceptional about Bangalore, which I think are strategic challenges, which directly relate to climate change. There are only 4 cities in the world of this size that actually sit on plateaus. Okay, Mexico City, Quito is smaller than this. Addis is about half the size of the city. So we are not only 100 kilometers away from our primary water source, which means, of course, we don't get flooded like Patna and many other cities, but we're also 1,000 meters above it, right? And in a world in which it's not only the temperature that's changing, it is the rainfall that is changing. So Bangalore has wonderful weather, but we're going to have a very difficult climate, fine? So what does that mean? It means that you're going to have too little water. That's the most significant challenge that the city has. It has too little water because it's sitting on a plateau, and its primary water source, I think Tushar is running BWSSB, you're pumping all that water 1 kilometer into the air and then bringing it here, and then of course a lot of it gets wasted, fine? So the primary constraint here is water. And there's almost nothing that you can do unless you use technology, new institutions and management, the kind of thing that Sudhira is talking about, to make that actually happen. Plus, the other interesting thing about climate change in this context is you will have too little water and too much water in the same place. Why? Because the monsoon is happening in a shorter period of time and it's more intense. So it's kind of contradictory that you'll have flooding and drought in the same place in different months, which kind of confuses us because our cities and our landscapes are not being organized to do that. So you have to change our way of thinking about this. Look at the future and try and adapt city structure, our land use, which is kind of complicated, and more tricky, our land markets to try and adapt to that. So we know how to do it, but the Smart Cities program is only touching at the peripheries of that process. It does something on mobility, it does something on green areas, etc., etc. I think we need a much more comprehensive approach, and Bangalore started on that, and it has to build on a very good base. So we have to build on our strengths, but there are some strategic weaknesses. Fatehpur Sikri, in spite of it becoming the capital of the empire, was gone because it had no water. And we don't want to go into that space. But with a city that's going to grow from 13 to 14 million people to hopefully not 20 million by 2040, we have a challenge.
Yeah, we hope to not go there, but half of Bengaluru is already struggling for water. So, Mr. Tushar Girinath, this question is for you. So, we all know that the rainwater we get flows down the drain and the wastewater fills the lakes and water sources in Bangalore. So, how do you think BBMP, along with other agencies like BWSSB, can address this issue, which is very important now, because we all know that Bengaluru is almost, at least some parts are water starved.
You're absolutely right, and Sir was also right. The critical factor for the Bangalore is water. We have no problem of land, except that land becomes closer to the other state and etc. We can't develop that side. That area will automatically develop. It will not see the state boundaries. But so far as we are concerned, we do not look that side. So our growth of city is all concentric, and it will continue. And there is hardly any limitation except water. And water, our dependency on single source Kaveri is a matter of great concern. And we have to get another alternate source, which has to come from Shimoga. We had some plans on that, and the government had agreed also that on the way we can give to all other cities and villages also some water. But this is the most critical aspect. On the other side, the people argue that this is, you have 800 square kilometer and around 1 meter rainfall is coming, and you calculate all that, it is exactly meeting. So that hardly happens, that calculation is not 2 plus 2. But yes, all said and done, there is rainfall and it can be captured, and a lot of work can be done. Secondly, our work on the wastewater, if you see, it has got great potential. It is also being used in the adjacent neighboring districts of Kolar and Chikballapur, and they are very, very happy with the treatment which has happened, and BWSSB has provided them water. It is lifeline to thousands of farmers, and it is giving absolutely good product. But as a city, we are supposed to use the treated water into the city, in the city, and have to have this type of understanding that treated water, we don't call it wastewater anymore. It is a treated water which can be used for n purposes. N number of purposes can be met by this water. We could not integrate this, and unless we do this, because 80% of our water intake is converting into sewage. And then sewage, again, you get treatment, etc. Then you will get around 60% of that water back. It is a quite good water, and it can be used, but we are hardly doing anything. Our work on the rain harvesting, where involvement of citizen is enormous. I mean, we had made all sorts of rules. I was BWSSB chairman for around 4.5 years. But nobody implements them. We go and give them certificate, and yes, first day they will show some rainwater harvesting structure, they are not maintained. Then it is not working, so you close it. There are a large number of wells kept in everybody's house, they are putting some pit. Those pits are not functional. We ourselves, as a citizen, are failing somewhere. Government can make some regulation. They can ask you to do it, but if you think that it is only for hoodwinking, and it is supposed to be, then our fellows will also be there to help you in hoodwinking. That is there. You can always show and get all sorts of concessions showing something. But our citizenry is also failing in not harvesting the water. BWSSB treated water, it should be used for all purposes. And I am telling you, a few days back, I was doing the K100 inspection, along with our ACS was doing the inspection, I accompanied. There was a lot of water flowing. They said it is treated water from the apartments they are letting out into this. So this is another irony. We are spending money. We are forcing the apartments to do the treatment of water, and then water is finding use back to the storm water, which was not the idea. So we have to make some model where we have to purchase, or there is a sharing. You can sell to us and BWSSB will sell to somebody else. So there is some sort of pooling. So we have to do a lot of work on rainwater harvesting and reuse of treated water. And as I say, the growth of the city is enormous and it is not showing any sign of abatement, because people are not seeing that the water table will go off in another 10-15 years. They see government will do something. So they will keep on. In short run, you will not see. So the growth will continuously happen. And by the time they've already built a lot of apartments and people are there. So we have to act now and go for one more source of water and have to bring it to give it again sustainability for another 20 years. What we are thinking about the Kaveri stage 5, it was planned to 2035. It will be getting over in 2026-27. In 5 years it will be over. Earlier our plan was at least surviving for 10 years. We brought 2002, then 2012, then 2022 is delayed by 2 years. So we have to do a lot of work on the... On other aspect, yes, mitigation requires a lot of work to be undertaken. And we are continuously in touch with World Bank, and they are about to approve our project for the resilience and urban, this flood proofing of Bangalore city. So that we are taking up. We have also started lining up our canals in great earnest. Whichever area is left, we will get it lined. Now people have a lot of talk, why you are lining it. It is supposed to seep through. Similarly, they are saying, why are you doing the concretization of the city? If you see the percentage of concretization on the road, it will be far, far, far less than what you are constructing. So that is argument is not correct. Road are not the rain harvesting structures. Rain harvesting structures are supposed to be in your house, in your apartment complex. Road saying that water will seep through your tar and asphalt and go down and feed the water table is an ulta concept, is a wrong argument. So we will be concretizing the roads because our roads are not going to survive in this rainfall, and with the climate change it will be far more intense. It will not be. Similarly, the lining of the canal is being taken to see that runoff is fast. You are saying let it go slow. The another argument is let it go slow so that the rainwater is fed down. The point is, if it is flooding, it has to go fast out. And you have to see that it goes to the river and meets fast. So you have to link all your lakes and connect. Of course, we are providing where the width is more, that water as it flows will keep on seeping down, and there is some recharging happening. But the argument is that we should not do, maybe it is a bit of difficulty in implementing it. So far the hard infrastructure is concerned, we may still be able to manage. Except on the waterfront, where we have to do some intense work, and that is happening. The government is committed and all sorts of projects are being planned, and we will be doing it, otherwise the city's existence is in question, so it will be done. But once the water comes, it has to be used properly. In your house you have to use properly, you have to use the treated water, you have to do the rain harvesting, then only it will happen. So, in my opinion, a lot of work has to be done on the other side also. Asking government to do this is good enough. You have to put pressure to get the things done. But don't forget your responsibility, because climate change, everybody is involved. Tomorrow you will be blaming us and we will be blaming you, that is of no use.
Of course, everyone is involved in this. I think, good to know that the BBMP has some plans towards this. And the next...
We have
concrete
lot of plans, comprehensive plans, and we are implementing it, but it requires lot more to be done from the citizenry and also from our side also. We have plans, but the implementation would require more resources, for which we will again have to come back to the citizens, and I hope that they will support us in all our endeavors and understand where their money is going. Once they start seeing the result of their money, maybe they will be more committed to pay their taxes.
Okay, thank you. So the next very big question we have is air pollution. The garden cities' air quality has deteriorated to a level I think we just can't ignore anymore. And stationary energy and transport sector are the two major contributors to this. How do you think, Professor Harini, we can address this? We can, immediate steps that can be taken, and also how can we prevent further damage?
So, of course, this is again, one of these big systemic shift questions where we need lots of work. We need to be replanting trees on the sides of roads. So our own research has shown, and I think multiple people research has shown, that when you have trees next to the roads, that's where they really reduce the suspended particulate matter. When you have them next to construction sites, that's when they trap the dust. And cement dust and dust because of construction and road movement is one of the biggest contributors. Unfortunately, what we're doing as a city is systematically cutting down all the trees next to the roads and replanting elsewhere outside of the city as compensation, right? So that's the first thing. How do we have an aggressive tree plantation policy and strategy that is right next to the roads and next to the construction sites to control the debris thing? The second is public transport, of course, and of course with the metro and we had the bus rapid transport corridor for a while. Now that has been, that needs to expand again. But also, can we do things? I think, for instance, Bombay was planning this, and Bangalore had some plans. I know Sudhira had tried it for a while. Along all the lakes where we have the stormwater drains, if we can have cycling paths and walking paths, people would rather prefer to use that. So it's not just public transport. How can we link all the different paths that we have so that you encourage citizens? I mean, like you were saying, like the commissioner was saying just now, that it's very important for us also to see how, if we want to buy 5 cars every year, then the city is not going to be able to deal with this amount of pollution. So how do we as citizens do that? But there are behavioral shifts that the city can help induce in us. And if there are places available for us to cycle or walk in a safe way without having to deal with traffic, people would, I think, much rather do that on the side of the lake. But that requires lake cleanup, and something like the K1000 project should actually take off successfully across Bangalore. Right? So there are many little pieces to all of this.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Dr. Revi, by 2040, would the infrastructure that we have in Bangalore be able to offset the impact or effects of rising temperatures and also climate calamities?
It depends on what kind of infrastructure we build and what kind of buildings that we build. Fine. As far as buildings are concerned, unfortunately, because of the internationalization of the city, if you go to old parts of Bangalore, there are places in which they don't even have hooks for the fans, because when they were built 80 years ago, we didn't expect these kind of temperatures. So we have to do something very dramatically on the built environment. And for example, if you look at the buildings that we built at IIHS, they're 1/4 of the energy consumption of the Indian standard. So you can actually build at factor 2, factor 4, not only buildings that we build, which are high efficiency, but even public buildings and other buildings. So if you actually use much less energy, you have much less emissions. That's one kind of story. That connects in with what Harini was saying. You have to move your entire mobility system so it's accessible to everybody. You've got to get people out of cars into a high quality mobility system, which now we have the metro for, which is going to run on renewable energy. And remember, Karnataka is ahead of many other states in the country. We have the 3rd largest solar park in the world in Tumkur. 2 gigawatts that's providing that. So you've got to electrify all that transport, move people onto electric bicycles, hopefully. But the challenge we face every time we walk here is, forget about riding a bicycle. I used to ride, but it's too dangerous to do it just now. You can't even walk on the footpath. So you've got to make sure that pedestrians and walking, you've got 10 months of wonderful weather. That's your greatest asset. Use that. But people are unable to do that. So you need to electrify, move people off from all these IC engine vehicles. That industry is building here, so that's going to create jobs that are going to make it possible. And we have to basically build infrastructure that is not only not net zero. There's a lot of story. I kind of helped lead the report that created this net zero business at 1.5. We have to go to carbon negative infrastructure and systems. If you look at the international companies here, Microsoft and Google are one of the first companies in the world that went net zero. They're trying to go carbon negative at the moment, so that you store carbon, because now we're heading for an 1.5 overshoot. The only way to deal with the overshoot is actually to store carbon. One of the critical ways of doing that is in all the new infrastructure that you're building, as far as that's concerned. And finally, the challenge for people who have the money is, you set up a company here or you're building an infrastructure, you should take the life cycle carbon that you put in and make sure that you're able to store it. So it's not only net zero, it's going to that to net negative carbon, but also your life cycle carbon is there. We have people here who can lead in that kind of process. So if you do that, plus, very important, we have to shift the city onto renewables. And so we have renewables in large, solar parks outside, but we have to, in some senses, every house or every, even in informal settlements, you need to see blue on the roof, because you're able to have an interconnected grid there. consumption goes down, you do the efficiency in the household. So you're actually consuming much less resources because they're produced on top of your roof. And I think the government is trying to do a lot on that to work the interconnect. Similarly, to extend the idea that you had, if we are producing wastewater, there's no reason why we should not bring it back into the system and recycle it. So like you have net metering for electricity, if we are actually for large apartment complexes able to take that water and give it back to BWSSP like it did, or like you're sending to Kolar, the city will become a little bit more like Beijing. Beijing recycles 60% of its water. I'm not saying Singapore. Singapore is 100%. Fine. But we have to go on these two critical resources. Energy is coming to us for free from the sun, and water, to make them circular. And if you do that, it's not only good for the environment, and the trees can't survive without the water. The garden city happens because the water is there. Because BWS pipes inside the city are leaking in lots of places. So, you get a lot of interesting things happening there. But also, this creates jobs. It creates a completely new set of industries which we can demonstrate in the city and then take to the rest of the country. So, it's a win-win in some senses. You just have to be imaginative, be able to execute, maybe like the Chinese do in some ways, and be sensitive to, environmental and equity considerations. Because if everybody doesn't have access to this stuff, it doesn't work, fine? Because otherwise, it only works for rich people or people who are able to come to places like this. That's not very exciting.
Thank you. So I think it's about integration of different aspects. So that comes to the question, Sudhira. So can you tell us a bit about using transdisciplinary approaches drawn from sciences, engineering, and social sciences to address climate mitigation and adaptation?
Yeah, I guess like I guess what Aromar said, or even all of you have already articulated, right? See, the challenges that we are facing, unfortunately, we don't have a silver bullet. As in, I wish we had a magic wand that you can just put it across and then solve these things. So I guess we'll have to really look at it from really transdisciplinary approaches. What would you look at? Like, for example, like on mobility aspects, right? We've experimented with bicycle-friendly streets in Jainagar and all of that. And we also wanted to have parking policy in place for that. As in, so that it has to go hand in hand. That we have an on-street parking policy that can be enforced, like addressing mobility. Again, taking a step further there, if you look at, we were looking at other aspects on mobility, but particularly, we are all enamored by BMRCL, right? It's in the metro. But mind you that even after the completion of these 4 phases that the metro is building it will only carry about 1 million or 10 lakh commuters per day. Do you know how many commuters BMTC is carrying today? It's more than 60 lakhs. Right? So we have a majority of population who are using different, as in BMTC as one primary mode, and then we also have a whole bunch of commuters who are using private transport. So we have a larger chunk to really address than looking at it. So I'm just putting the different aspects there, as in that's something that we have to be mindful of, because the enormity of the problem sometimes makes us feel overwhelming, because it's really challenging in that sense. But there are, we have to really think of, imaginative ways. Like, I also play a hat with, sort of ecology in the sense, at IIHS, we have what is a very unique endangered species called slender loris. And that group of, slender loris that is at IIHS has been isolated because of, they can only move between tree covers. And lorises only need canopy. So they are kind of isolated between Sankey Tank, IIHS campus, and CPRI. So they are not able to move beyond Matikere in the north, nor come down to Malleshwaram or go towards Sadashivnagar, because after Sankey they can't really move. So they're kind of isolated. From an ecological perspective, they are isolation of such a species because they will lead to inbreeding, and it's just a matter of time they will vanish. But from if you bring in the landscape planning into place now, as in that's where imaginative things we have to look at, is we can think of canopy corridors from north to south, like all the way from, let's say, Nandi Hills to Banerghatta, because we have pockets of loris's population across the city, and they're all largely isolated. So we'll have to think of ways you can bring all of that. Now, we're bringing in, again, from a social science perspective, right? This also brings in, we've been talking about planning and all of that. The question is, who is setting the objective for planning? We had, I think, 2031 master plan that was also being made, and 2041 that got scrapped and all of it. The key question is, who is thinking, as in, who is planning for it? As in, from a bureaucracy perspective, I know they're into execution in that sense. But who is thinking? That comes in that most critical question. And who is setting the agenda for the city? I think that is where we need a more collective thinking in place, and some other mechanism where at least whoever is thinking beyond the executive, which is the bureaucracy, as in the bureaucracy can certainly execute, as in you give the resources and the mechanism in place, they can certainly execute, but who is doing the thinking? I think that's the critical question. And mind you, as in today in Bangalore, we have better understanding of how the city is working. We have better models to look at it. We have cloud computing. We have access to STS or satellite data at a very high resolution. We have multiple things in place. And what really lacks at beyond a point is how do we put all of them into an enforceable plan?
Yeah, thank you. So before we conclude, could you all please share your vision for Bengaluru? How do you see the city's pathway unfolding to a sustainable future in the next 2 decades to come, since we have 2040 summit here, and also make it livable for all? Could you please start, Dr. Revi? Keep it brief, 30 or 40 seconds, so that, yeah.
This city has the immense potential of not only being livable now, but in the future. Its resilience is going to depend not only on the resilience of Bangalore, but actually the resilience of Karnataka. Because Bangalore is both a risk to Karnataka and an opportunity. So we have to link, and we haven't talked about food here, we have to link the security of the city and the security of the landscape and all the cities in this, in this state together. But most critically, I think the most important thing the city has is it has a set of people who are welcoming, who are inclusive, and we have to hold on to that culture that's there. Because if you have an open city with an open culture, then you can solve these problems collectively. We have the science, that's kind of obvious. Technology is in place. The real question is of the culture and the institutions in the place. So we have to hold on to that. And that's what brings remarkable people in the city. This is the only city in the country that I know that you have films that are running in maybe 5, 6, sometimes 7 languages. Tell me any other city that you have that in? It's because of that culture that we have to build on. That's what I think makes Bengaluru great.
I think we need to keep the ecosystems at the heart of the city when we grow, because again, climate resilience, since that's the focus of this panel, if you lose the parks and the lakes of Bangalore, you've really lost the character of the city, the culture of the city, but also the livability of the city. But that requires multiple things. The lakes that have been successfully restored is because of partnership. So I think what the city needs to build on is the success in the way people partner. Government can do what government can only do. Citizens can be at the site for parks and lakes and strengthen the hands of the government and make sure that these restorations work for everybody, the equity issue that Aro was talking about, as well as now getting corporate groups in, because now, how do we get all of those groups in? Fortunately, I think Bangalore has been, not just the cosmopolitan with languages, but also a place where people get along and people work together. So that to me is one of the big things we must do. The second thing is, where is the city growing? It's growing rapidly at the periphery. That's where the high-rise apartments come up. That's also outside the BBMP. So I think that's a challenge now. That's where the ecosystems are there. That's where chances of doing a different... Remember that 2/3 of Bangalore up to 2040, or at least half of Bangalore which will exist by 2040 is yet to be built. How do we... I think that's where we have a chance of doing something different, but it's very difficult for instance, the BBMP, because it's outside their jurisdiction. It is BWSSB's jurisdiction, but it's also BMRD's jurisdiction. Then it comes back to Sudhira's question. It's easy for communities to talk to the government and government to talk to private players. How do you get government agencies to talk to each other is the larger challenge.
Yeah, Mr.
Right, thank you. I guess one of the key challenges that we are facing is, I'm not sure how many of you are really aware, we don't have an elected council, as in which is the third tier of the governance in the city. In BBMP, we don't have an elected council, and that's something that is of paramount. Two, we have been working with the Town Planning Act, which was formulated or passed in 1961. We had some progressive laws till, as in amendments that happened till 80s. Since 90s, we have had, I must say, regressive amendments to the Karnataka Town and Country Planning Act. And across the country, many states have adopted this British Town Planning Acts. So what we follow is what is the 1961 Karnataka Town and Country Planning Act. It's time we revisit that, and I wish our lawmakers provide the thought leadership to make a new Spatial Planning Act. And more importantly, where in such an act, all the things that we are talking of climate change or bringing different aspects of mobility or linking, ecology and landscape at a landscape level particularly, and also looking at multi-institution thing. And something that it's a cause of concern for me is the bureaucratic entrepreneurship in Bangalore. Like I said, we have multiple number of public sector enterprises that is running with perhaps very less accountability in the sense because the citizen is being transformed to a consumer. That's such a concern that I have. And that's where I think it is important we come back, have the elected council as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this enriching discussion. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Anita. Now we have a small memento for all our panelists. If I could request Mr. K.V. Subramania, our associate editor here at Deccan Herald, to join us on stage and give a little memento. If I could request all our guests to kindly step further. We will need a picture of all of you if you could kindly step to the center and further.